Today was an amazing day in the courtroom. It was the sentencing of Hoot Crawford, the Marcy's Law attorney for a teenage victim a couple of years ago. I'm not going to go into too many details. As a matter of fact, I'm going to first of all, I'm going to show you incredible video, and I am determined not to rehash the case. We'll cover, for those of you who haven't been following, more later. But today, what I want to do really is get right to some of the most incredible video. Remember, Hoot Crawford was the Marcy's Law attorney for a 16-year-old victim. In Florida, if you're a victim of a crime, you have the right to an attorney to help navigate through the legal process, to give you a voice, to understand what's happening. And that's what he was doing for this girl. But Sheriff Tommy Ford and State Attorney Larry Bassford, they said that he wasn't representing the girl in her best interest. Wait till you hear what she and her mom have to say about that, because they told Judge Kelvin C. Wells today. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This was the victim. And she tells the judge that the authorities were the ones traumatizing me, that my attorney was my advocate. And she felt, now she's a young adult, 18, and she felt as though she had a duty to stand and advocate for her attorney, who now can't speak for himself. So Judge Wells found Hoot Crawford guilty on 2 counts. He could have put him in prison, but he didn't. So there's a silver lining, I suppose. But he is now a convicted felon. He has 3 years probation. He has lost his law license because of this unbelievable persecution. And he can't vote. He can't have his Second Amendment rights, so on and on. So let's do this. I'm going to show you incredible video. And look, I was there. I was in the press box recording, taking pictures. I came back. I've been editing. I've got 1 million people I owe phone calls to. So if you've been trying to reach me, I am sorry, but I just wanted to get this video out. Let me thank some sponsors, and I'm going to get right to it uninterrupted after this, and you'll see what happens.
It's a hot time in Florida, and my friend Ryan can make sure your air conditioning is running at peak efficiency. He could even install a new one, built to a higher standard, American standard. Find out more at PCAirrepair.com.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome.
Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
Right, here we go, uninterrupted. I'm going to show you the video I took today from the press box. This is a 12-minute video. I'll probably comment a little bit just for context. I want to get this. Okay, so what you're going to see is this. At the sentencing hearing, you see Attorney Hoot Crawford sitting there on the left. You see Judge Kelvin C. Wells on the right. The man standing in a suit in front of the judge is Hoot Crawford's defense attorney, Don Pumphrey. And there were probably 7 or 8 people who came up in front of the judge, put up their right hand, swore to tell the truth, and then gave character testimony of Hoot Crawford before the sentencing. I'm only going to show you 2 today. All right, I'm going to show you the mother of the teenage girl, and I'm going to show you the teenage girl herself, who is now 18. I'm sure her name is out there, and it will be. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just publicity that she didn't ask for, didn't deserve. She shouldn't have to stand up for the judicial system. when she's the victim in this whole damn thing. But she's incredible. Incredible. And she is, because remember, Sheriff Ford and State Attorney Bassford said that she was terrified and that Hoot Crawford was a crazy man and terrified her. By the way, the judge sentenced him to psychiatric evaluation and psychiatric treatment if necessary. You talk about gaslighting, sadistic gaslighters. These guys are all crazy. Hoot Crawford is not. Eccentric, different than most people, maybe, but he's not crazy. In fact, he's a great guy. He's the only guy who stood up. But I don't like him. Okay. So here we go. This is the mother today telling the judge her feelings about the man that they convicted for representing her daughter through this time.
I'm here today to speak to the kind of person Hoot Crawford is, Your Honor. He's the kind of person who does what he says he's going to do, no matter what. He puts others first. I'm not here to argue any findings of the court, but I will say he did what he thought was in the best interest of my daughter. He did what he said he was going to do. He stuck by her side. He is a man of his word. If he says he's going to do something, he means it. That's a rarity these days, and his actions were selfless. My daughter will forever be grateful to him and will continue to cherish the bond they have forged. He helped her through a trying situation, and he has since become a mentor to her. He continues to put others first. He taught us you can be kind and gentle, even in the worst of circumstances. He taught us what rights we have and how the law works, and we are coming from a place with no knowledge. He taught me you can go outside your comfort zone and stand up for yourself and for others. He has a heart of gold and truly cares about others and their well-being. When we were finally able to spend time together again, it was like family reunion with hugs and tears from all parties. His main concern was how busy I'd been and how our family was doing. This is not a position I ever thought I would be in, but I wanted to have a chance to say that Hoot's a rare person and one of the best kinds of people. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
I'm the victim.
Okay, so that was the mother. Remember, all this happened at the Children's Advocacy Center, which gets probably tens of millions of dollars from the federal government on the condition that they advocate for children and that they do not, that they have a safe place where kids can go and there are not authorities and cops buzzing the hallways. But the Gulf Coast Advocacy Center has Sheriff Ford's investigate. They have offices and they scare the ever living out of these kids and they make them say things and then they use what they say and they go after people. Some people, look, if you're hurting kids, you need to go to prison. We all know that. But the Children's Advocacy Center is hurting and scaring them. And this is the teenage victim that needed an attorney to help her navigate through this legal system. She was taken by the state. She was told she had to go to the Children's Advocacy Center and do a voluntary interview. So she got an attorney. You can do that as a teenager. Her parents got her an attorney, and she really, really was happy with Hoot Crawford. Hoot Crawford said, "I've been there before, darling. I'll go with you, and I won't leave your side." She said, "Please never leave my side. Always be with me when I answer their questions. I'll do that." She gets there, and the cops want to interview her, and the cops want the child protective team to interview her, but they say she has to be alone. She doesn't have to be alone. She has the right to an attorney by her side, but they strip that from her. And this is her. And this is her talking to the judge. And I'm still not going to say her name. There'll be a time, I suppose, when it's said all the time. But she didn't ask for this. What a brave young person.
The Hoot's a rare person and one of the best.
That's the mom. Here's the teenager.
I'm the victim in this case. I was 16 years old when Mr. Hoot Crawford was arrested. Round me down the door, and I wanted to offer these words to the court. Mr. Hoot was my attorney. He was my advocate when I was going through a very hard time emotionally, and helped navigate me through the legal system since it was all new to me. I was confused and afraid, but I wasn't afraid of him, and I wasn't afraid of my family. I was afraid of the authorities who had taken me.
I was not afraid of him, and I was not afraid of my family, because the sheriff's office said that her older brother of 2 years was threatening her. But when Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis finally got on the witness stand in the actual trial, and the defense attorney standing there in the gray suit asked the sheriff's office, "Were you afraid that she was going to be hurt by her brother?" And the answer by the sheriff's office was no. I about fell off my seat. And she said, "I was not afraid of Mr. Hoot, my attorney, or my family. I was afraid of the authorities."
Take me through the legal system since it was all new to me. I was confused and afraid, but I wasn't afraid of him, and I wasn't afraid of my family. I was afraid of the authorities who had taken me from my family and threatened my family unless I went to the Children's Advocacy Center. I was afraid of the unknown, so I got a Marcy's Law attorney to help me navigate through this traumatic time of my life. Earlier that week, law enforcement had come to my home the day I returned from the behavioral hospital.
Earlier that week, law enforcement, being the sheriff's office, had come to my home the day I returned from being Baker acted from the behavioral hospital. So she's a teenager, 16. She was going through a very hard time. She said she was afraid to be alone. And so she was Baker acted. I don't have heartburn over that. But as her mom picked her up from the behavioral hospital 3 days later, when she was released because she was doing okay, she had her own therapist. On the way back home, Sheriff Ford's guys are blowing the phone up, and they were at the front door when they got to the house and started yelling at the mom because two of the investigators couldn't stop chasing this teenage girl around. Investigator Trey Fondren and investigator Jake Roberts were acting like the damn Cape Fear villain chasing this teenage. They absolutely wanted to get her alone to talk about sex. And she didn't want to do that. So she had an attorney. They arrested her attorney, and they took her alone and interrogated her and asked her those questions. And then that judge, Kelvin C. Wells, allowed attorney-client privilege to be used as evidence against her attorney, who was going to, by the way, run for state attorney against Larry Bassford. So Larry Bassford wasn't going to have that, and neither was Sheriff Tommy Ford. This is unbelievable. And here's this brave young woman telling the judge this. And Judge Kelvin C. Wells is annoyed. "Listen, young lady," he doesn't say that, but look at his face.
Before my mom and I could even walk into our home, law enforcement was at our front door making demands. I felt like we were in trouble. My 5 younger siblings were hugging me, asking me what was going on, and I couldn't answer them because I had no idea why the authorities. She
said, "When I got home, Sheriff Ford's guys were out front of her door. She goes inside, and her 5 other little siblings, she hadn't been there for 3 days. She's going through a hard time. They're all asking her what's going on. Meanwhile, Sheriff Ford's investigator, or rather deputy, they sent a patrol deputy out front. "You need to call him right now. You need to call her right now. Or we're going to take all your kids from you." So she just got back from the behavioral hospital. She's in the house. Mom's out there with a deputy saying, "You got to call right now. You got to call right now." Then investigator Fondren shows up an hour later, threatening to take all the kids from the mom. And she's telling the judge this. "I couldn't tell my siblings what's going on. The cops are out there questioning my mom."
Authorities were at my home, my safe place, questioning my mom. Throughout this case, they have accused my attorney of scaring me and not looking out for my best interests. But that's just not true. The only thing he wanted was to help me.
Mr. Hoot was the only one standing between me and the authorities. They were the ones who were traumatizing me.
Mr. Hoot was the only one standing between me and the authorities at that scary, scary place, the Gulf Coast Children's Advocacy Center. They were the ones who were traumatizing me. And the judges, come on, Missy, we already got the jurors alive. I got them out of it. We don't need all this. Look at his face.
They were demanding to talk to me alone, and I didn't want to talk with anyone without my attorney by my side. I thought I had that right.
I didn't want to talk to anyone without my attorney by my side. I thought I had that right. Oh my God.
Between me and the authorities. They were the ones who were traumatizing me. They were demanding to talk to me alone, and I didn't want to talk with anyone without my attorney by my side. I thought I had that right. But when we arrived at the Children's Advocacy Center, things became very hostile. I was so scared that I was shaking. Authorities were yelling.
I was so scared I was shaking at the Children's Advocacy Center. Authorities were yelling at Mr. Hoot and my parents. That would be Lieutenant Jeremy Mathis and Investigator Trey Fondren, who was mad because he couldn't get her alone.
At Mr. Hoot and my parents. It was clear that nobody was there to advocate for me except for Mr. Hoot. After they arrested him, the rest of the day felt like the whole world stopped spinning, and I was floating in one big chaotic mess. I found myself alone, back at the Children's Advocacy Center.
Yeah, when they arrested her attorney, they brought her back to the safe place, the Children's Advocacy Center. They took her back, and Investigator Jake Roberts interrogated her twice and did not tell her she had the right to an attorney, and the whole time was telling her that her attorney was crazy and not looking out for her best interest. And what did he tell you? And they used that information, attorney-client privilege, taken after they ripped her attorney away at the Children's Advocacy Center. They violated her rights at the Children's Advocacy Center.
Being interrogated by law enforcement, he kept asking me what Mr. Hoot and I talked about. He kept saying bad things about him. I felt so manipulated and betrayed. Looking back now, I realized that my right to an attorney was stripped away from me.
I felt so manipulated and betrayed. My right to an attorney was stripped away from me. This is Sheriff Tommy Ford and State Attorney Larry Bassford, because Hoot Crawford wanted to run against Larry Bassford. And so this young lady, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right?
After being questioned, I sat by myself for hours until a therapist came to the room and talked to me for a few minutes. She wasn't my therapist. My therapist's name was Summer at that time. They put me in state custody and said that I couldn't talk to my parents over the next few days. The same law enforcement officer came and questioned me about my attorney 2 more times.
The same law enforcement officer, after they stripped her from her attorney, she's alone and scared. The same Sheriff Ford's law enforcement officer came and interrogated me 2 more times. How in the is this okay? I mean, she said that it felt like the world stopped spinning and I was floating in one big chaotic mess. That's how I feel right now. And in less than 3 weeks, Sheriff Tommy Ford wants you to reelect him. Larry Bassford wants you to reelect him to keep the community safe.
I felt like if I didn't talk, I was going to be arrested as well. I was terrified of the worst happening after everything that had happened the week before. Today, I'm just baffled at how all of this is happening. I can't believe Mr. Hu has been convicted for being my lawyer, for protecting my rights and helping me. I thought I had the right to attorney-client privilege, but it was used as evidence against him. I don't think I can trust attorney-client privilege ever again.
Great.
This whole experience.
Great. Good job, guys. Well, Bernie, we needed to use attorney-client privilege. Everybody talks about wanting to protect the kids and all that stuff, you know. And this is what they do to them.
But it was used as evidence against him. I don't think I can trust attorney-client privilege ever again.
Great.
This whole experience has made me afraid of law enforcement. If I see a cop when I'm driving, I start white-knuckling the steering wheel. I shouldn't have to feel this way. I already had trust issues and now they're worse. Law enforcement's supposed to protect, but they are the ones I'm most afraid of. I hope this letter is not out of line. I was afraid to even write it and thought I was too afraid to read it in person. I never wanted all this media attention, and I don't want to upset law enforcement again.
I don't want to upset law enforcement again. Hell, I know how that feels. I know how that feels. When I leave here, they're always, I'm going to videotape it, actually. I'm going to videotape what I see when I drive away, and you'll see how they follow. Because I'm telling you this stuff. I don't want to upset law enforcement again. But she was brave enough to stand in front of Judge Wells. Where the hell's everybody else? Saying this is not okay. You don't put attorneys in, you don't convict attorneys for representing victims under Marcy's law. Just because the sheriff's office wanted to get her alone and talk about sex without her attorney by her side. And these deputies were male deputies. They didn't even have female deputies talking to her about it. They had male deputies. Guys rubbing their hands together, chasing her all over the place. At the Children's Advocacy Center, where they have an office.
But today, Mr. Hoot deserves someone to advocate for him. He did his best to protect me and give me a voice when I was too scared to speak for myself. Everyone has the right to an advocate and deserves that right when they can't speak for themselves. Thank you.
All right. So after that, State Attorney Larry Bassford, this is the prosecutor here. This is Frank Sullivan, the assistant state attorney who prosecuted Hoot Crawford. Okay. And after Hoot was convicted, the Children's Advocacy Center brought him on stage and gave him an award. And the state attorney, Larry Bassford, and Sheriff Tommy Ford are on the board of directors. What?
Your Honor, I am sure the court is well aware of recollection of the testimony and what came out of trial in this case. I'm not going to go back through all the evidence.
So what he's going to bring up is, again, the attorney-client privilege conversation that they used to convict.
If the court remembers, there was the video that was taken after Mr. Crawford left the CAC with Ms. Sweeney, that Mr.
His
Crawford
client.
Himself. During that interaction between the two, Ms. Sweeney asked Mr. Crawford.
During that interaction between the two, see, Hoot Crawford was recording it on his phone because the cops were chasing him around, and he thought maybe it would be used to show that she wasn't in danger. But instead, the judge said, use that to get him. And they kept saying, he's just like anybody else. He's not special because he's an attorney. Well, clearly not, being an officer of the court. This girl had attorney-client privilege snatched away by these guys and used to convict her lawyer while her rights were stripped, and she's never been made whole from it.
Crawford, are you allowed to do this? Are you going to get in trouble? Mr. Crawford's response was, no, I'm probably going to get arrested. And I think that's important in this case because this these actions that Mr. Crawford was found guilty of by a jury of his peers, the voice of the community, has found him guilty of committing these crimes.
One of the 6 jurors lied, and the judge let him lie in jury selection. The judge let him lie during jury selection. Then the judge said, okay, I guess you can talk to him about it. And then the judge said, no, you're not going to talk to him about it. This is unbelievable. You can see Frank Sullivan, the state attorney, even though he's ruthless. He would have been fantastic at like in Gotham City or something, like for Bane, maybe. This is a sentencing hearing. Your guilt has already been found. You've got 2 choices. You can leave or you can die, that kind of thing. But he doesn't, you can hear him waver just a bit because he knows this is bullshit. But he does it anyway because you get an award from the Children's Advocacy Center.
Would be a crime for any individual of society to commit. But Mr. Crawford, as a member of the Florida Bar, took an oath to uphold.
Now, remember the words he's using, because the judge is going to use his words. Basically, the judge was the supreme prosecutor in this case. I think they gave the judge a written piece of paper, and the judge just read what these guys, he just echoes word by word for word. Watch.
The laws of the state of Florida and the United States. And on May 6, 2022, he abandoned his duty and that oath of an attorney, knowingly committed these crimes, knowing that what he was going to do was going to get him arrested. And it would
getting
a
arrested by crooked cops and a crooked prosecutor is very different than committing crimes. And he knows this.
For any member of society to do, but for a member of the Florida Bar who was taking that oath, to throw that oath aside and continue down that path, knowing that what he was doing was a crime.
He almost couldn't even say it. Watch.
To throw that oath aside and continue down that path, knowing that what he was doing was a crime, is especially reprehensible. Your Honor, as I said, a jury of his peers has found him guilty. The voice of the community has found him guilty of these crimes, and I'm asking the court to adjudicate Mr. Crawford guilty of both of these offenses, sentence him to a period of supervision of 3 years with 2 special conditions of supervision. 1, that Mr. Crawford undergo a mental health evaluation and any recommended counseling, and 2, that he perform 100 hours of community service.
Thank you, Mr. Sheldon. All right, this time, Mr. Pumphrey, you've been practicing law in this area, I believe, for 25 plus years.
Now, here's Judge Wells issuing the sentence. After he heard the victim in the case say that I wasn't afraid of him, I was afraid of them, and my rights were stripped away, and I was interrogated without all of that, the judge doesn't care. So Judge Kelvin C. Wells is going to read a piece of paper. And he's going to say exactly what they told him to say, because he's not a judge. He's a supreme prosecutor. Watch.
You've done a lot of good things in this community. You have. You've got a lot of friends. That's something to be proud of. That's evidence today by how many people you have supported you. But you are also an officer of this court, and you took an oath when you became an attorney in the state of Florida.
See? And he's reading a piece of paper, and he's saying what Bassford's office said. This guy's not a judge. He's just a supreme prosecutor. Just feed me what to say there. I'll take care of it.
And you weren't a young lawyer.
He almost can't. Sometimes he can't even, because he's dumb, he can't read very well. He doesn't mean any of this. He's just saying what they told him to say. Watch.
You were familiar with the process. One of the gentlemen that just came up and spoke on your behalf, you had volunteered with DCF, or not so much DCF, maybe it was the shelter house or the advocacy center.
He doesn't know anything.
So you knew what this situation was about. You knew there would be a shelter hearing where a judge would decide what happened.
By the way, at the shelter hearing, by law, the DCF has to raise their hand under oath and swear to the judge, which was Joe Grammer, that there's neglect. There was never, ever sworn testimony. The entire thing was a sham.
That's for this child. Perhaps the most damning evidence in this case.
What is it going to be? The most damning evidence in this case, guess what it is? Attorney-client privilege that this judge allowed to be used. It is shocking. The most damning evidence in this case, let me tell you what he's going to do so you know I don't have to interrupt too much, is going to be the recording of him and his client. And in it, Hoot Crawford says, if I'm wrong, I'm going to lose a lot. You'll hear it. And that's where they stop. But the next sentence that the judge doesn't tell you is the girl his client says, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. In their attorney-client privilege that all of us should feel filthy that we listen to it. You should be ashamed that you listen to that. What kind of judge would listen to that? Attorney-client privilege and then use it as evidence and then not even use her last sentence that said you're not wrong. What?
Came from your own recording that you made in that car. And I got a transcript of it. And I don't know if both the lawyers have it, but when you start on page.
He got a transcript of it because I think it was fed to him. They're telling him everything to say because he just says whatever they say because he's Supreme Court Prosecutor Wells.
Page 6 at line 22, the young lady that just spoke stated, do they normally do this? Your response, no.
We are listening to attorney-client privilege. I mean, I feel guilty even listening to this. This filthy-ass judge is reading attorney-client privilege, violating the girl's right yet again.
I've never done this before with anyone in my life, anybody in my life. She said, why are they doing it to me? You state, I've never done it. She states, why are they doing it? You say they're doing it to you because you're saying no to them, okay? They have a right to
at a voluntary interview at the Children's Advocacy Center.
ask you, you have a right to say no. I don't want to talk to you, okay? She says, are you going to get in trouble? You say you have the right to the Fifth Amendment, darling. She says the Fifth Amendment. Then you say, because you made accusations, and if they're false, you can be charged with a crime. So you can't say yes. And they did it, and they said yes. They did it without getting him in trouble, or no, you didn't without you getting in trouble. You're in a complete box, right? You can't ask for questions because one hurts him, one hurts you. She states, would it have been better if I showed up without my parents or something? I don't know. They just want you to talk to them, darling. They want you to talk to them. And the best thing you can say is that it's all made up and it never happened, okay? And I tried my best to get through to him and assure him I believe you. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I threw away a lie.
And then she said, you're not wrong. But the judge and the prosecutors, Larry Bassford, left that out. That was her next sentence. You're not wrong. The judge left it out, using attorney-client privilege to prosecute and sentence her lawyer. Is this unbelievable? Sheriff Ford and Bassford are running around saying they protected her. They terrorized her. You're not wrong. Why'd you leave that out, Judge Wells?
Mr. Crawford, you knew that that child was in state custody.
No, she wasn't. They proclaimed it, but she was they convicted him of taking a child out of the lawful custody of the state. The state never took lawful custody, ever. You had judges who said so without any sworn testimony, without any evidence at all. And then this judge would not let Hoot Crawford challenge the legality of the shelter. This is what the judge told the jury. If attorney officer of the court, Hoot Crawford, if he heard the DCF agent say, we're taking her in custody, well, that's it. She's in custody. Judge Wells says that DCF agents, by saying it, makes it so, and you can never question whether or not it's lawful. That's what he is saying. Listen.
That was told to you by that children and family worker. You knew, or should have known as an attorney, you had a conflict between that boy and her, and you were trying to protect two of them at the same time. You told your client to say it was all made up and never happened. You were telling her how to testify.
You were telling her how to testimony. This is how dumb this judge is. You were telling her how to testimony. Listen, that's what defense attorneys, that's what attorneys do, is they advise you how to testimony. But you filthy asses are listening to attorney-client privilege. Wow. I'm now, the world is not spinning and I'm floating in a big chaotic mess. I know what she's talking. When she said that, I immediately understood that feeling. Judge Wells is sentencing an attorney for being an attorney, telling her how to testimony. Watch, listen.
Told your client to say it was all made up and never happened. You were telling her how to testify. And then at the end, your closing says, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I threw away a lot. Well,
again, she says you're not wrong.
That's what carried the day with this court. So because of that, I'm going to adjudicate you to be guilty on both counts. I'll place you on a term of probation of 3 years for running concurrent. The finding court costs will total $1,253. I'm going to require a mental health evaluation and any treatment deemed necessary. The cost of supervision for probation, I don't know what that figure is.
$20 a month.
How much?
$20 a month.
$20 a month, cost of supervision. You need to be fingerprinted, submit to a DNA swab, 30 days to appeal. Check in with probation here in Bay County today. All right, anything further to come before the court?
Not going to say like, I'm going to do that.
The election is next month. By the way, there's also county commission race, and you can vote Tommy Ham, who wants you to vote him in for a third term, out, because there's another candidate who's not, by the way. Tommy Ham is in the home building business. He's made a bunch of money as a county commissioner. Well, Ron Keel is an Army vet. He's somebody who is not a home builder like Tommy Ham. He just thinks that maybe we need more honest people in government. Again, I'm sorry if you're one of many people waiting for a return text or phone call. I'm sorry. But it's not going to be probably tomorrow either. I am swamped at the moment. Sometimes I'm just lazy, trying to retain my sanity. But right now, I'm actually really busy. And so I'll do my best. I'm sorry. But I do want to thank you. For those of you who throw a tip in the tip jar, it keeps me going. I was sitting next to WMBB today in press box. And, we're joking about, there's not a lot of money in reporting. I said, boy, I tell you what, try being independent, relying on tips in the tip jar like this, like Patreon. So thank you, those of you who are patrons, as little as $5 a month at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson. It's anonymous. It's easy. You can quit at any time. And crowdfunding is so important when you do this kind of thing. Also, I want to thank, of course, another sponsor, the Unknown Patriot. Thank you for your support so I can continue to chase this stuff down and tell you what I can when I can. And I'll tell you right now, it's bad. It's bad. But the good news is that more and more and more. Do you know Sheriff Tommy Ford has had like 55 lawsuits? Do you know that there are about 21 active? And their depositions are beginning and truth is coming out and people are standing up, even young ladies like the very brave victim who had her rights stolen from her by Sheriff Ford and State Attorney Bassford. So I do feel like there are too many people who are saying this isn't right. That maybe, just maybe there'll be accountability.